Easyread is an experience rather than a product, and so you can't really sort of pick it up and evaluate it in that sort of way. So I want to give you a little overview of what's really involved in the Easyread membership process and how that will be as an experience. So let me show you what's involved. So the first problem we see for parents is a lack of tools to get this right for their children. So generally, as a parent, we end up sitting on the sofa with a book and just trying to read it. And that's what I did, and it frankly didn't go very well. It was a painful experience for me and for my sons, because it's very hard to learn to read like that. It's a little bit like giving your child a bicycle without any trainer wheels. That really they get a lot of bruises, is the reality, isn't it? And also, as the parent, you're going to be running along, trying to hold them up, and you'll end up in A&E as well, because your back goes ping. And you can get a situation where your child might get so many bruises that they just say they don't want to ride a bike, they want to play football instead or something. And so reading is really very similar to that if the reading experience is too hard and too stressful and doesn't go very well, then you get to a point where the child just doesn't want to do it anymore. And actually, as a parent, you're not enjoying it much either, so you sort of avoid it. And that's what we need to avoid. So what's the solution? Well, we've built a whole platform of activities and games that exercise the sub-skills that your child will need in order to be able to read that book. But they're not going to be reading the book straight up. They're going to be doing these other things which are building these neurological pathways and abilities that then actually make reading the book easy. Now, after a couple of weeks, they will start reading books within the system, but again, they're very structured in a way which makes that process easier and makes sure they're engaging with the text in the right way. And this is critical because a lot of children are very bright visual learners, and that's very hazardous when you're learning to read. What happens is that rather than trying to work out the words, they just start to memorize them. And in those early reader books, there aren't that many words, are there? So it's relatively easy to do that. And so they memorize the words, and that can sort of all look quite good. And so you're not worried. But of course, memorizing a dozen words or a couple of dozen words is one thing. Once it gets to hundreds, it gets a lot harder. So you'll start to see guessing and so rushing through with making little errors, which sort of seems okay because they're learning to read. But actually, if you look very carefully, what they're doing is a lot of predictive guessing, and they're using the picture and that sort of thing in the first letter of the words to do this, rather than developing this decoding letters to sounds to words process, which really is the key to reading any alphabet text like English. So this is where the activities that your child will do on the platform will be ensuring them that they are actually doing it the right way and building the skills they really need. And also, it's just a lot more fun. It's games and stuff, and so you'll find your child's actually asking to read instead of, being forced to read, and that's so much better, isn't it? That's really what you want. So that's the platform. The next problem we see is that parents are just getting no guidance or training on this. They just get told, read with your child. Isn't so much of parenting like that. You just get given a baby, say, okay, you can go home now. You just sort of try to work it out as you go along. But with reading, that's not ideal, because developing the skill of reading is a relatively long journey. Even with our system, it's sort of, we're talking months. Often you're helping a child for years without that sort of the tools that I was talking about. So and it's quite a complex process, and there are little ways that you can make a big difference just with simple bits of knowledge, little ways to guide your child, and little routines that can double or triple the rates at which your child's progressing. And so it's a waste to be spending that time without having that knowledge. So the key to that then is to have a proper training system. So we call it the Easyread Success System, because that's what it's all about, is by having the right knowledge, you'll walk into each reading session confident that you're going to get it right, that it's going to go well, you're heading in the right direction, and that everyone's enjoying it. And so that really makes the world of difference. Having said that, complex systems, you can read the manual, but it doesn't mean you definitely get it right. Even the best tennis players in the world have a coach, don't they, to observe them and give them tips as to what they're getting right, what they're getting wrong. It's very difficult to see that in oneself. And that's what we found as well. So we originally built the platform, then we added the training to help people get it right. But then we added tutoring. So this is where we, have made a big difference to the experience of the parents each day, is that we've added tutoring. So then the tutor works with you. So you're doing regular sessions with a tutor, and then you're doing daily sessions with your child. We can do tutoring every day, but of course that's a lot more expensive. So most people, they're doing the daily session with their child, and actually it becomes a fun part of the day that you'll come to enjoy. You'll come to actually miss it, I think, when it's finished. So the tutor is coming in and just observing and coaching and demonstrating little ways to get it right, and they're also keeping an eye on the data so that they can make sure you're heading in the right direction. And so that's the role of the tutor, and it really is such a huge help, and it just means that we can get it right every time rather than hoping for the best. So the final problem for parents generally who are not using Easyread is that they're doing the reading each day with their child, but they're not really sure whether it's going in the right direction or what progress they're making, because day by day it's very hard to see that, isn't it? You can see that there are still problems, but you can't see how much you've progressed. And this can go on for months or even years. You're not sure you're going in the right direction. Sometimes you're not going in the right direction. We have parents who come to us sort of late on in this process, and with their child 7 or 8 or even 9, and they come to us because their teacher has just suddenly said, your child's really, really falling behind with reading. You need to read more with your child. And they say, well, more? And it seems crazy, doesn't it? How can you not know that something's going wrong for months or years? And how can the teacher not know that something's amiss for all that time and then suddenly announce it? Well, actually, the reason is because these non-optimal approaches to reading, which is often the visual memorization of words, can seem quite good in the early days. And especially the bright children can more or less memorize a book. So if you're repeating a book, then that also tends to feed into this. So then everything seems to be going okay. There are mistakes, but that's okay. That as the book gets more complicated, there can be more mistakes, but that's sort of dealable with. But actually what's happening is that a child's not building the right skills, and then suddenly they hit their plateau where they just can't memorize any more words. Now, their peers, who might have been at sort of like a similar level, have developed this decoding skill and blending, and their reading is becoming subconscious and fluent, whereas the visual memorization child is constantly trying to recognize words, and so they hit this plateau, and then their friends are going up at the normal level, and so this gap opens up quite suddenly, and that's the moment that the teacher says, there's a little problem here. And so that can be quite a devastating moment, so it's much better to be seeing that happening early on and getting back on track really early on. That's what we much prefer. But if you've hit that moment, then we can turn it around, so that's okay too. So that's what you need is you need a tracking system to really be able to see that you're on the right track, that you've got all the data points heading in the right direction. So this is not so much about relative to other children, it's about where you're going. So this is a key thing, is that different children progress with this at different paces, and that's fine, because if you're climbing a hill, it doesn't really matter too much how fast you climb the hill. If you keep going up, you will get to the top. Everyone gets to the top if they keep going up. And so long as the data is showing this steady improvement, then that's good and that's fine. And fluent, confident reading will come out of that. And so that's what we're looking for. And it's glaringly obvious if that's not the case with the data. And so that's, again, as I said, the tutor will be watching that. And if there's a worry in the data, then that's what they'll focus on when they're working with you, and make sure that we've got all the bases covered. And so we're completely confident that we are going to hit the targets. That's what we want, is 100% success. That's our mission. And that's what we experience, is that if a child can speak the language and see the text clearly on the page, they can learn to read without exception. And we've worked with thousands and thousands of dyslexics and have got great results with them. So we exclude nobody when we say that. And we're confident that we're the best at this, is the reality. And that may sound like a rather sort of bold statement, but we have some data on it. And I'll show you where that data comes from. So another issue that we're completely aware of is that it can be very worrying, even when you're paying for a solution, that you don't actually know whether you're heading in the right direction as a parent. You're not an expert, and the expert is saying you're making these promises, but you don't know that they're going to come out. So we recognize that. We want our parents and the children to have peace of mind that they're definitely, this is real, they're going to get to the right place. So we actually give an unconditional guarantee. So there's a sort of bit of trust involved in that, isn't there? That can be abused. But the good news is that we've found that our parents don't abuse it. They're very happy with the outcomes they see, and maybe the people who would abuse it don't trust the guarantee or something, and so they don't use Easyread. I don't know, but we find people are very trustworthy. So it works really well. It gives people peace of mind. And this is the interesting thing, is that I have actually talked to some of our main competitors, sort of somewhat posing as a parent, actually, incognito. And I've said, so you're promising this, but would you guarantee it for me? If I spend all this money, will you guarantee it for me? Sometimes they're talking about a huge amount of money, so, I mean, way more than we charge. And they look at me as if I'm mad. They say, well, of course we can't guarantee it. There are children who can't learn to read. We all know that. So we couldn't possibly guarantee it. And I was like, oh, interesting, really. Well, we don't find that. We expect 100% success. That's why we can guarantee it. So I hope that helps give you peace of mind. And we really hope that you'll give this a go. You can do the free trial, so you can start to experience the difference, in the next few days without any risk. That's, again, we're confident that when you see the different attitude of your child to reading practice, even in the next few days, that you'll begin to understand how different this can be, and the pace that we're talking about weeks for really substantial progress. And we do this 3-month intensive where we're expecting to get to a point where your child's reading really has developed accuracy and confidence at a certain level. Not, we're not talking reading Proust yet, but clearly a good foundation is there, and you're feeling like there are no worries. It's now just about developing that further. So please get in touch to do the free trial, and we'll just take it from there, and we'll look forward to working with you.